Should we move into Elden Ring and I'll take a little break?
I mean, we can ask you questions. We could be like, what does Radahn sound like to you, Frankie?
Let me just get something out of my car.
Well, the thing is EJ and I have both played the game for probably like 200 hours each, and we couldn't even tell you the lore or the story. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, and I'm one of those people who watches the soothing British people who talk about they read all of the things in the descriptions.
Ages ago, before the Erdtree, the Elden Lord Placidusax was challenged by Bale, a dragon that lacked the stone scales that made his kin immortal.
And like you can watch those, and then you still don't know what the fuck's going on.
I couldn't even begin to tell you the story of this game. There's a big fucking tree, and you set it on fire like halfway through the game. That's all I know.
Yeah, it's vaguely George R.R. Martin theme, so there's like a lot of like incest and weird stuff in there, and yeah, it doesn't really matter because a lot of the story is not really told to you. It's like you kind of have to infer it from the item descriptions.
Oh yeah. That's why we don't know what the hell's going on, because it's like they don't tell you the story. You got to find the story and really like write it down and think about it and watch the British guys on YouTube.
I actually like that because I don't really want story.
It's there if you want it. Like if you really crave it, and it's there if you go looking, but like you don't need to interact with it at all.
And like a lot of the stories like kind of environmental, so you like walk through all these environments and you're like, oh, something crazy must have happened here. And I rather would have that than those cinematic cutscenes like The Last of Us where you have to put the controller down.
So anyway, when did you play the base game? Did you play it when it came out, or were you late on that?
No, I played it right when it came out. Like there was a lot of hype, like because I was a fan of George R.R. Martin's books.
But you're not like a FromSoft fan though. Like you
No,
didn't play like the Dark Souls. You didn't play any of the Bloodborne or any of that.
I bought Demon Souls because it was well reviewed at the time.
It was the only PS5 game when the PS5 first came out. The Demon Souls remake was like the only actual game for it.
Yeah,
so that was kind of a must buy.
This was PS3. So PS3.
Oh, the PS3, really?
I bought it because it was well reviewed. I think I played it for 5 seconds and I died instantly, and I was like, I'm not in the mood for this. And then I played like New Super Mario Brothers or something.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't into them. Actually, the only FromSoft game I played through was like 3D Dot Game Heroes, which was I think only published by FromSoft. Yeah, so it was mostly the George R.R. Martin connection. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It was very well reviewed. So I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. I remember going to GameStop and I was like, oh, can I get that Elden Ring game? And I remember the cashier was like, this is a really hard game.
What a fucking asshat. Oh my God. Posturing piece of shit at the game store.
I don't know. Did you not want me to buy this? But maybe you got some people returning it. Who knows? I don't know.
No.
And I'm like, Russ from Retro Gamecore. I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to buy it.
It's going to ask you, do you really want to do this? And you say, yeah, man, I want to do it.
And I loved it. I think it's the perfect amount of FromSoft. It's easy enough so you can like run to all the graces and teleport around.
There's plenty of shit to do. If you get stuck in one direction, you can turn around, you can do something else.
Yeah, if something's like killing you real bad, you just go to a different dungeon. It's slightly easier maybe. Yeah, I loved it. I loved the more environmental storytelling. I like the design of everything, the mood, the feel. I played through it. I played 160 hours of it or whatever.
Yeah.
And
as we all did when it came out. And then the DLC came out like 4 or 5 months ago or whatever. And you just finished that.
Yeah, I just finished it. And I'm on New Game like +5 or something. So
+5? I didn't realize you went that hard. I thought you were just in like +1.
I platinum the game, so I got all the endings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. To get the platinum trophy, I had to beat the game several times and get all the endings. So I was on New Game +5, and then I got to the DLC, and it's harder on New Game +5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it's more Elden Ring. I mean,
it's more of the same game basically. It's like here's another chunk of like the world that could have existed before, but it didn't. What did you think of? Okay, so the biggest change really, I think, with the new one is the new like upgrade system, right? Like the tree fragments.
Yeah, because they wanted it to be kind of a separate progression, and I think it was kind of a smart way to do it.
I think it was really smart, honestly.
because if you played through the base game and you leveled yourself up to like high heaven,
you're going to experience this yourself because you just restarted on a regular game and you beeline for the DLC. You didn't do anything else. You're probably at like level 20 or some shit, and you're going to get to the DLC, and you might not be fucked, even though it's kind of like an endgame area, right? You might be okay because it's got the separate upgrade path.
Yeah, because as long as you do the upgrade path in the DLC, you're basically fine. Like, and that's how I play. I play these games like pretty methodically. I'll like.
Oh, you do? Didn't you get all the tree fragments? I think you said you were at level 20.
Yeah, I got to level 20 because I'll start in an area and I'll just case the whole area for shit.
Did you use a guide for that, or do you just naturally get all of them?
It's like a combination. It's you go through yourself and then you're like, oh, what am I missing? And then you look up.
Gotcha.
You could look up Fextra Life and you're just like, yeah, okay, there's something over here.
I finished it at level 17, so I got most of them, but I left a good chunk where I didn't even go to. There was the northeast part. I didn't even get to that whole like black swirly bit with the fingers coming up. I didn't even go there.
Yeah. There's the quest over there.
The design of this DLC very much so is like you see things and it's like how the fuck do I get down there? That's like constantly what you're asking yourself in this.
It's very what would you call it?
It's very vertical, isn't it?
Vertical.
Yeah.
But I never felt like there was a lot of vertical platforming, but there's a lot of parts where you just like can see another area right below you, but you can not get to it.
And it's always down. They do such a job of always putting you on the higher plateaus, so you always see down what you're missing. And it's like you just got to figure out how to get down there. I mean, the base game had this too, but I found that in the DLC, it's especially tricky to figure out how to get to all the parts.
Yeah, because you find the entrance in like a way different zone. And usually in the base game, you could be like, oh, there's some gravestones over here. I can hop down.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like it's a whole different separate place that you have to like go into Shadow Keep and you have to find the secret exit and stuff. Yeah.
The dungeons in the DLC, especially the Shadow Keep's the big castle, right? So we're talking about the same thing. That's got to be the most impressive dungeon in like the whole game, right?
Yeah, the bosses I think are all very impressive. They're way more aggressive too. Like my God, like when I'm playing through the base game now, because I'm streaming it. If you ever want to check it out, EJ Massa on Twitch. But I went back to the base game bosses and they're like way slower.
Oh yeah. Well, you're also playing through Dark Souls 1 right now. You're gonna witness that like FromSoft wasn't always about the super aggressive bosses, because Dark Souls has like one in the normal game and like one in the DLC that is like up your ass the whole time, but the rest of them are pretty chill. They'll let you get your moves off.
Yeah, and I just started Dark Souls for my first time, and so I do realize it's a much slower.
The people are going to want to hear about how you did the catacombs first, because that's actually fascinating, believe it or not. People will be into that. They'll want to know that.
Well, I did. Well, so yeah, you start at that Firelink place. And I was just like walking through the graveyard that's there. And then I saw like a little path and I was like, oh, look, this seems like where I'm supposed to go. So I went into the catacombs.
Rookie mistake.
And then I like ran in and I got like one of the bonfires.
Yeah, if you get that first bonfire, you're kind of in. You think you're on that path, right?
Yeah. And so I'm just like, all right. And then I die all the time. So I'm like, I kind of grind skeletons for a bit. Like I was listening to the vice presidential debate while like killing 2 skeletons, going back to the bonfire, killing 2 skeletons.
Well, you made it all the way to the bottom of that because you were talking about the wheel skeletons, right?
Yeah, and then I started going more. I got the great scythe.
Best weapon in the game, by the way. That can carry you the whole rest of the way if you wanted to.
Really? Yeah, it seemed like I liked the range on it.
Oh yeah.
And I got to the bottom of it and there's that blacksmith there. I looked up a map because I was like, where the fuck am I? And but the maps are not very helpful, I can tell you.
Oh, they're not. I have the hard like strategy guide for Dark Souls 1, and like the maps don't help in that at all. It's such a 3-dimensional game. It's hard to draw a 2D image of a map that makes sense.
No, it's you can't do it. And I'm not very good. I have my grandmother's sense of direction, so I look at a map, I'm like, fuck.
Well, you went to the most confusing area in the game, and it's all dark, and the skeletons respawn, and it's just a fucking mess.
Yeah, so I got to the bottom, and the wheel skeletons. I figured out you could do you could do a shield, and they don't immediately kill you, and they run to the wall, and then you can slash them a couple times. And then
Those skeletons, those wheel skeletons, are the most nefarious enemies in the game. You can be end game shit, like not max level, but like high level, like ready to take on anything. But those fucking wheel skeletons, they get behind you, they stun lock you, you're dead.
yeah, no,
Doesn't even matter.
there was like half an hour I was trying to run past them.
Yeah.
And then I
Did
was
you
just
make
like,
it past them? Did you fight the boss down there?
No, not yet. Well, then I figured out the shield, and then I could kill them, and I just basically farmed them until I upgrade my side to +5, and then I think after that I'll go face the boss.
Okay. That's an interesting one. He's one of the more infamous bosses in that game. You shouldn't have a problem. You should be able to beat him. So anyway, back to Elden Ring, right?
Elden Ring, yeah, the DLC is great. The boss designs are really good, even though they're aggressive. And then finally, you get to like Radahn and
He fucking
spoilers.
Pounded my asshole. Yeah.
I know people were like upset. It's like, oh, I can't believe they like reused the boss, and this is like lazy lore.
Well, I mean, it's a completely different fight. Same character, completely different fight.
Yeah, and for me, who like I like again, I watched like 60 of these British people talk about the lore, and I still don't know what the fuck's going on.
It's also kind of a callback to Dark Souls 1, but I don't want to spoil how, because it actually can be kind of rude for me to spoil that, because it's like a moment you got to experience.
That is what that's kind of fun about these games. It's basically like the same type of game.
Yeah,
It's the same like kind of like, oh, it's light inside this dark, and then you get embers, and you're brought back to life, and it's the same kind of thing. And you know.
Well, first off, we beat Radahn because they nerfed him, because I blasted through the DLC right when it came out. I got through the whole thing in like 2 or 3 days, and then I got to Radahn. I got like all these fucking tree fragments or whatever. I'm at like level 17. Could not beat Radahn. It didn't even seem fair. It didn't seem possible. And I knew instantly because I went back when EJ beat it. I'm like, okay, well, if he can beat it, I can beat it. So I went back and they nerfed him. And I could tell right away, because when you enter the fight, you actually have time to summon your mimic and chug a jug before he attacks you. Where before, while you're walking through it, he's already like mid-jumping animation ready to smash you.
Wow.
He's like already attacking you when you're going through the door before.
Yeah, so they actually just give you a chance to
They give you a fighting chance this time. Like you would have to like do some serious maneuvering just to get the mimic off before, but now it's just like, no, he gives you time. You can get that off, you can get your heal back, and then the fight will start. And he's not quite as aggressive either.
Yeah. Well, most of the bosses I felt were more aggressive than the base game, but I was kind of overpowered from my new game plusage.
Yeah,
I could bully them pretty. I do the jumping attack.
Yeah.
And I do the slash
what's your build?
down.
What are you using as a weapon?
I have two. Was it iron greatswords, and they have what was the fire affinity or whatever. It's the other fire affinity. It's not just fire. It's the fire whatever. And I use mostly like faith magic to buff myself, and I do jumping attacks. So a lot of like I have
a lot of damage. There's a lot of stuns. Like that's good for stunning.
Yeah, it just felt right because it reminded me of Zelda 2, you know, where you're always doing jumping attacks.
Oh yeah,
and that felt right at home for me. So that's where I gravitated to. And you get the talisman, the claw talisman, so your jump attacks do more. Yeah. So that's how I bullied most of the DLC. But the two bosses I had trouble with were Mesmer.
Yeah.
With his spear attack and range attack, it just screwed me up. I like died at him like 30 times, and then Radahn I died like 60 times.
When I went back, it was the third try, so I was proud of that.
I think you do need to sleep on it.
Oh yeah,
too.
that's a FromSoft thing. Like your first attempt always goes better than like all the other ones when you lose. Like the first time you get to a boss, you'll get him to like this much health, and then you'll never get that close ever again.
Yeah, and then you
So
sleep on it, and like your brain kind of like, you know, it's like you should be like studying languages or something, but your brain is like forming the pathways for the boss. And then I mean, I hadn't
played the game in months. Like my first attempt, I'm like just getting used to the controls again because I recently played through Dark Souls 1. I played through Dark Souls 1 probably on average once a year, but like I was used to those controls, so I had to like adjust to Elden Ring. And then like 2, I got killed by some nonsense. And then 3, I beat him. I'm like, yeah, that wasn't bad at all. They nerfed him.
Yeah, going to Dark Souls is definitely strange with how like slower and more methodical it is, and like the skeletons just like are more aggressive than the skeletons in Elden Ring. So you're just like, oh geez, and you're slower, and it's like, okay, well I have to learn this.
I don't know. My two takeaways from the DLC, I think, were one, the Shadow Keep is an incredible area. The number of like branching pathways and the verticality and everything all to that was amazing. And even like under that, right, there was like the weird pot dimension, like the blue pot realm with all the pot guys.
The fused guys that are stuffed into pots. Yeah.
Which you learn are disgusting, by the way. Make you want to freaking throw up when you see like what those really are. Yeah,
my takeaway is that most companies would just call this a $60 game. Like,
it could have been.
This is like a full game. It's a full meal.
It's only not a full meal when you put it up against the base game, because obviously like Elden Ring as a whole is bigger than just this DLC. But if you remove yourself from that, like if this was sold as just a standalone game, you wouldn't feel ripped off.
Yeah, if this was like, if Ubisoft came out with this game, you'd be like, this is the best Ubisoft game.
And the new upgrade path like adds to the whole like closed off nature of like this DLC. I thought that was really smart, because when you're introducing new trinkets like the freaking tree fragments or whatever, I think it would have been really easy for those to turn into like Korok seeds or some shit where the reward doesn't matter. But the fact that they tied this whole new upgrade system to these new like MacGuffins you got to get, like it really makes, I don't know, I think it was just really smart to make you want to explore and to like find all that stuff.
Yeah, and they're not that, there's a few that are kind of tricky to find, but they're not that hard. They're usually like right next to the sites of grace, so you're doing during your natural progression, you will find most. They
give you
them.
A healthy number of them.
Yeah, you'll find
even if you don't do all the
them,
weird shit for them.
And it is for. It's like it's the lost levels to the Elden Ring Super Mario Brothers. So you get a little more challenging, but yeah, I enjoyed it. And then like some of the landscapes are beautiful, like the one that's like covered in blue flowers. Did you get there? Or there's the red flowers. It's like some of the like the environment.
That boss is an asshole, by the way. That like big plant, the scarlet rot plant boss.
Oh,
that thing fucked me up.
The bud plant.
Yeah.
I beat that guy. The thing is, the bigger bosses, the ones that have like a lot of meat on them, those are easier for me because I have a lot of like when I do my jump attack, I'm usually going to hit them. Yeah, and then they like break their stance, and then I fuck them up. It's just the small little guys who move really fast. Like it's usually like you go into like a random. Like one of those random jails, and there's like a little like at the boss at the end of them is just like a little guy. Yeah. Those little guys always fuck me up.
Oh man, yeah, they can be tough in their own way.
It's like the Super Smash Brothers Ultimate thing. It's like when you have Elden Ring and this DLC, it's like, man, where are you gonna go from there? It's gonna be interesting.
I mean, it adds to an already fantastic game, and it's like it makes it more complete if that was possible, right? It's just more shit. It's more Elden Ring. That's all it is.
Still don't know what's happening though.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.